Many of you might think this sounds like something out of a movie, but what Trump did to capture Nicolás Maduro and move him out of Venezuela within hours is something almost nobody expected, especially not the people inside Maduro's own system. From the outside, it looked sudden. From the inside, it was the final move in a long game that had been unfolding quietly for weeks. For a long time, the United States did not rush. Instead of loud threats or dramatic announcements, pressure was applied in ways that didn't grab headlines, but slowly boxed the regime in. One of the most important parts of that pressure was at sea. Venezuela's lifeline is oil, and oil doesn't matter if it can't move. Weeks before the operation, U.S. forces and partners began tightening control over shipping routes. Tankers linked to Venezuelan oil exports were tracked, intercepted, delayed, and in some cases seized. Insurance costs skyrocketed. Crews grew nervous. Even when tankers weren't physically stopped, the message was clear. The ocean was no longer safe for business as usual. This mattered more than people realize. Oil exports fund the regime, pay loyal commanders, and keep key security units on Maduro's side. When tankers stop moving and payments get delayed, cracks start to form. Officers don't get paid on time. Fuel distribution becomes uneven. Maintenance slows down. On paper, the regime still looks strong. In reality, it's stressed, distracted, and more focused on survival than coordination. At the same time, U.S. intelligence was doing what it does best, watching quietly. Maduro's movements were tracked. His security patterns were mapped. Which buildings he trusted, which units guarded him, which locations he rotated between, and which ones he avoided. Over time, a clear picture formed. Maduro felt safest inside military zones, especially major complexes in Caracas. One location stood out above the rest, Fort Tiuna, the heart of Venezuela's military presence in the capital. Living inside military installation in Caracas gave Maduro a false sense of security. It felt untouchable. Loyal troops, armored units, command offices, and controlled access points all in one place. But that concentration was also a weakness. When everything is centralized, a single well-timed disruption can throw the entire system off balance. Trump's approach has always been about leverage. He didn't need to weaken every part of the Venezuelan military. He only needed to create enough pressure that, when the moment came, the system would hesitate instead of react. That's where the long game paid off. On the night of the operation, the first signs were explosions and disruptions across Caracas and nearby military-related locations. These were not random strikes. They targeted infrastructure that mattered to military response: communications, radar coverage, power nodes, and airfield-related systems. Almost immediately, confusion spread. Commanders couldn't see the full picture. Some units lost contact with higher command. Others didn't know whether they were under direct attack or witnessing the opening phase of something larger. This confusion was intentional. The strikes were never the main event. They were designed to overload the regime's ability to think clearly. When multiple incidents happen at once, decision-makers slow down. They wait for confirmation. They fear moving too early or in the wrong direction. That hesitation is deadly in a fast operation. While attention was pulled outward, the real mission moved inward. A U.S. Special Operations team moved directly toward the military installation. This wasn't a blind assault. Every corridor, access point, and timing window had already been studied. The goal was speed, not confrontation. The faster the team moved, the less time nearby units had to understand what was happening. Inside the complex, the belief was that no foreign force would dare to operate there. That belief collapsed quickly. The team reached the residence, secured the immediate area, and detained Maduro and his wife Celia Flores before meaningful resistance could form. There was no drawn-out firefight, no hours-long standoff. The entire capture phase was measured in minutes, not hours. Extraction was already in motion before most of the complex understood what had happened. Helicopters lifted off and moved away from Caracas, while defensive systems were still recovering from the earlier disruptions. Airspace confusion worked in the team's favor. By the time the regime began piecing together the reality, the detainees were already on their way out. The helicopters didn't head for a vulnerable land base. They moved toward a U.S. naval platform positioned in the region, the USS Iwo Jima. That choice mattered. A ship provides mobility, protection, and control. Once Maduro was on board, the risk of interception or rescue dropped sharply. From there, the transfer to U.S. custody was straightforward. Only after everything was secured did the announcement come. That timing was not accidental. Trump has always believed that results speak louder than warnings. By announcing after the fact, he denied the regime any chance to preempt, spin, or counter the outcome. The leadership was gone. The story was already written. What made this operation so effective wasn't just military precision, it was the context built beforehand. Weeks of maritime pressure, oil tanker seizures, and export disruptions forced the regime into a defensive mindset. Resources were tied up. Attention was scattered. Trust inside the system was already strained. When the strikes hit and communications faltered, there was no margin left. Another key detail is what was deliberately avoided. Oil infrastructure inside Venezuela was not flattened. Refineries were not turned into ruins. The goal, it was to remove the leadership at the top while leaving the broader system intact enough to avoid immediate collapse. That restraint kept the focus on accountability rather than chaos. The operation also sent a message far beyond Venezuela. It showed that geographic distance is not protection, that loyalty-based security structures can fail quickly when timing and intelligence align, and that long-term pressure combined with decisive action can produce results faster than endless negotiations. From Trump's perspective, this fit perfectly with his broader strategy. He prefers clear outcomes over prolonged standoffs. Instead of managing Venezuela as a permanent crisis, the move aimed to change the equation overnight. Remove the central figure, and everything else has to reset. Subscribe to our channel for more updates as they come out.